it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew -1. Unfortunately, Anthony had to do some stuff tonight, and I am behind the scenes because I am not feeling 100%. So Dean is taking over the show tonight with a solo show. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch and subscribe to us over on YouTube. It is a great help for our channel, and we really appreciate all the support we've gotten thus far. Without further ado, Dean, I'm gonna let you take it away and run the show for the night. What are we doing here tonight?
Oh, first, before I get into what I'm doing or what we're doing or however you want to phrase it, the first thing I want to say is, hey guys, this may not be Cypher System directly related, but it is MCG related. And Monty Cook Games is celebrating the 50th anniversary of D&D, you know, that major RPG that got us all started in this hobby for at least for the probably about 99.9% of us out there. But they're having a great sale over at MCG. 50% off, up to 50% off on all D&D related material that they have over there. So, you know, if you're looking for something, if you want to still, you know, support your 5e games with some great products, I swear, go on over there, do yourself a favor, and see what they have to offer. You will be pleasantly surprised at the quality as well as the quantity of the things that they have available to you to use for your 5e games. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on over to what we're going to do here tonight. And what we're going to talk about here tonight is none other than my favorite statement that I have a tendency to say or refer to all the time. And it's my paradigm shift. It's what I call it when you finally kind of wrap your brain around the concept or the idea of what Cypher System actually offers you and what Cypher System is. And it's not just for Cypher System. It should be for your gaming in general but Cypher was the catalyst for me realizing exactly what needed to happen. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to quote some of the stuff because I had actually written it. I had written a blog post about it at one point. So I'm going to quote some of that stuff. But to the chat, to our audience out there, if you have questions, I'm going to do my best to monitor the chat as I'm running my mouth. And we can have a conversation back and forth. If you have questions, if you have, you know, concepts that you want to throw at me, you know, because guess what? The paradigm shift is really about that. It's really about the exchange of ideas. It's really about being able to embrace concepts and so on and so forth and use them in order to enhance everything that you already do. But without further ado, that's what we're going to get into. So the first thing that I'd like to say about the paradigm shift is the truth of the matter is I didn't always have this revelation. I kind of wish I had it a long time ago, but it was when I first encountered Cypher System, you know, because I encountered it with Numenera. And by no means is there a such thing as a perfect system. But Numenera sparked something in me. It made me start looking at the game. I didn't know what I had in my hands, but I had something special. So this might be harder to grasp for people who've only dealt with one game or one type of game. But that was the whole thing. It was just something special. It was something different about it. And I realized the biggest thing with Cypher was I had to leave all of my previous experiences at the door. Didn't throw them away, just stepped in the house, put that stuff down at the door. And then I had to start embracing Cypher. And in that embracement of Cypher System, I started to realize that Cypher was this beautifully nuanced system. It didn't have a lot of rules per se, but the rules were elegant. The rules were malleable. They allowed you to start to see how you could run a game and basically allow players and yourself as the GM to do whatever you wanted within the realm of the game and not have to rewrite the mechanics. And when you start realizing that your game should not be about mechanics. You become free. Uh, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a mechanics heavy system, a crunchy system. I played lots of them, so many, and they have their place and they are awesome. They are great things. And trust me, the reason why I say that is because, again, like I said, I didn't say throw away what you had your experience from before. I think all the games that I did play from before allowed this paradigm shift to happen so organically. And it started making me realize that no matter how intricate the mechanic is or how simplistic it is, it still has the ability to be flexed. And once you start flexing versus breaking, rewriting, bending, you give yourself a freedom within the system. And Cypher System is the chef's kiss, bee's knees, if you will, in that conceptualization. Um, and so that being said, like I said earlier on, not everyone has had the amount of experience that I've had behind the screen, or with RPGs in general. I'm going to date myself here, but so you guys understand, Dungeons and Dragons is celebrating its 50th birthday, and in 3 years I'll be celebrating my 50th year of gaming. So that should put it in give you kind of an understanding of where I'm coming from. So I'm not taking anything from anyone. I don't care if you've been playing for 6 months, 6 years, 30 years. You know what? Everybody has something to bring to the table. The biggest thing the biggest takeaway I want to see from this is that you don't have to know everything. You can learn it as you go along, because for me to say how long I've been gaming, I'm still learning. I'm still getting, taught things from new gamers. Ideas are like water, you know, and that's the beautiful part about it. So let me read a section from the blog I had written. Um, and I wrote this. It says, as a player, Cypher makes me happy. That means I'm in for an experience of massive levels. And that's how I see it. Because the other aspects of Cypher System games, powered by this engine, there's character creation, where the character creation is a part of world building. When you create characters with your players literally are already putting their mark on the world. There's an investment there. And I think these are the things that we have to start taking away, is by having those investments. So, and that little statement, I think, is also important, is that players now feel invested. It's not just about the GM, you know, and trust me, GMs, you're going to be inspired. You're going to look at Cypher, and you're going to look at the white books, or you're going to look at Predation, or you're going to look at the Strange or whatever. We always hear about everybody want more Strange or wanting more Predation or whatever. You're going to get inspired. But the biggest thing I'm going to tell you is, yes, you might enjoy world building. You might enjoy crafting the structure. But if you let your players have just a small part, 15%, 20% of that with you, it becomes this even greater experience. The the player in you, as well as the GM in you, both get fed. And the investment is awesome, because now your players are truly invested, but you as the GM are now invested in your players as well. And it it makes for a wonderful synergy. Okay. And I come from a time when, we lived in the antagonistic world of the GM versus the player. Um, and I remember I never really enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy that much. But you have to look at it from the aspect of when these games were created. They were created built off the idea of wargaming. So it was always you versus somebody else. It was two people, or how many ever armies were skirmishing. And Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, those guys, took those ideas and started going, well, what if we gave the commander this kind of personality, or we gave him this kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. It was, this is how it blossomed, and this is how it grew into, the idea of characterizations and so on and so forth. But early on, we still had that antagonistic competition and confrontational nature. So we as the GMs, we've sat back sometimes and it's like, okay, how can I get me a TPK today? And things like that. Whereas now we're looking more through the lens of how can I tell this great story? This is an exercise in interactive storytelling. And you know, any RPG can be made to be adversarial, or any RPG can be made to be an interactive exercise in storytelling. So these are all aspects of the paradigm shift that I want us to start to embrace. When we look deeper beyond just the rules, why are we sitting around the table? Ask yourself those questions. Why are you here? Why is anybody here for this? That's the first step in embracing that idea. The second step is, okay, am I running this game for a group of my friends, longtime people? We have similar tastes. We are, we resonate at similar frequencies and so on and so forth. Then that's another aspect of the shift, because when you start looking at those things, then that's when you start crafting your games in a specific way. Second portion is when you start to make games for, people that you don't know. Are you doing demos? Are you doing one shots at conventions? Once again, that's where you start cultivating a style of telling stories, a style of facilitating the story. So it's interesting when you sit down with Cypher System. Yeah, it did get philosophical. Sorry about that, Al. I can't help it. Sometimes, I wax philosophical. Um, we're talking about the concept, Keta, of the paradigm shift. What it is in the sense of why I reference it so much when we talk about Cypher System. Because I'm getting into it because I'm looking at it through the lens of, like I said, about your people at your table, about how you're interacting with your tables and so on and so forth. But even more so, we look at the GM chat or the new GM chat and the Cypher System channel on the CU. We look at those three different channels, and people come in and they ask, these great questions. They'll ask us question, well, how would you facilitate, um, if I wanted my characters to, do this thing or do that thing, and you get 10 people, 10 different approaches. And by the time it's all done, the guy walks away who asked the question going, wow, that helps a lot. I got some things to think about. And the beautiful part about it is nobody was wrong. Nobody changed the game. Nobody had to write a treatise on what the changes were, because they just referenced a simple rule that was already there. How we've used the horror mode for various things, how we've used, when they first introduced stress and madness. I changed them when I wanted to run a gritty game. I turned them into uh, fatigue and exhaustion. Things like that. Never changing, the essence of the mechanic, just changing the application of it. And that to me is what Cypher is all about, where the mechanics themselves line up as in what they are, and they're always what they are. You set a difficulty, you roll, you multiply that difficulty number by three, you roll a 20-sider in order to see if you can uh, match that number or get greater than that, that target number. You spend effort, you spend edge, so on and so forth to bring these difficulties down. That never changes, but how you apply it does. You know, um, referencing what you just said, John Gradine, he said, I didn't realize how much of a paradigm shift it was until I had a session of Cypher where it felt like a 5e session and it felt wrong. That's not to disparage 5e, but it feels like the old way. And that's true. Once you've experienced how Cypher kind of breaks the bonds and sets you free, it does feel wrong when you go back to a game that is restrictive, that you go back to something that is telling you, you know, no versus yes, maybe, yes, and yes, but yes, do what you need to do this or you need to. And I think that is, again, when we talk about the power of Cypher, Cypher has is like, it's like the spectrum in DC Comics. It has different color power rings for different color emotions, and that's what Cypher is. It's this whole spectrum because you can even take the simple mechanics and make them a little bit more crunchy. I've actually run tactical games with Cypher System, where immediate, where I just added a range band. Immediate was out to 10 feet. And, from 10 feet, from 11 feet to 30 feet was short range. And then from 30 feet to, 90 feet, so on and so forth. Just did that and used templates on the board for directionals and so on and so forth. It ran like a dream, but never did I have to come up with a new way of explaining it or adding something that wasn't there. You know, um, let me see. I'm just trying to keep up with the chat, guys, because I don't want to, I mean, if you do have questions and I don't address it right away in the chat, Al's going to also keep track for me, and we will address things near the end. Um, so, but yeah. So Jack One Space says the way that Cypher paces skill encounters in a way similar to combat encounters lets you have a more varied challenges. It isn't just fighting monsters, but the challenges like jumping areas, lock picking, understanding also wear things down too. Exactly. Because the fact that a pool, you're using a pool of resources. Again, when Cypher says it's cinematic, it literally, that's what the pools are representative of. If you think about it, when you watch an action movie, and you see the hero, especially in the third act, the main action sequence, he's slowly but surely getting whittled down. I watched that and I'm seeing the pools being whittled down, watching his pools deplete, 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 you know. And then, of course, when he gets injured and he's limping along, okay, now he's down to damage track one level. Oh my God, I can do this now in a video, in a tabletop RPG. I can actually simulate that in such a cool manner and never lose any integrity of what the character really is, versus me having to reduce his strength, and then, I do some stupid hand wave, or, we say he sleeps overnight and he's got all of his abilities back. You know, I love the fact that Cypher doesn't work like that. I love the fact that it does give you that way to mimic those things. You know, earlier today, I was on the server and the what was it? It was the question of, give me a second, my brain is firing on too many synaptics at one time. And oh, they were talking about giving out XP. And it was funny because, you know, somebody automatically went into, well, Cypher doesn't give XP out for killing monsters. No, it doesn't. It with Cypher System, though, you as the GM can control how XP is delivered. You can say I've just got a certain amount of XP that my players can earn for completing this session. Any additional XP can come from, you know, role playing, comes from, do they make the GM laugh? Whatever conditions you want to set, GM intrusions, all of those things are ways that players get uh, additional XP. But XP in of itself is okay. We're playing this session. Everybody makes it through the session. Everybody participates. You know what? They're going to get 2 to 4 XP. Another thing about XP is that you can say, hey, all XP that's earned in game has to be used in game. That's going to be for, getting temporary abilities. That's going to be for re-rolls and so on and so forth. That's going to be for reviews and GM intrusions, and all XP that are given at the end of the session is used for advancement. And that's a way that you can help control your pacing. And that's also a way that you keep your players kind of on an even keel. You know, I was never a fan of doing it that way, but I learned, after playing with a few different groups, that sometimes it is necessary depending on the group you're dealing with. And like Ketup said, there is no wrong way to play. If you have fun, you have fun. But he says, however, certain systems have certain strengths, and it's more fun if you lean into that. And that's what I'm saying with Cypher, though. Cypher allows you to do just that. You can lean into the system and have fun and do so many things with it without changing the quality of what the system is. Um, Brilliant Loser says, he said, I think the only problem I had with Cypher got addressed so elegantly in the Supers book, which I'm blanking on the name of. That book is actually called Claim the Sky. Yes, absolutely. Supers, I remember, when I first played with Supers and Cypher System, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I was giddy with excitement because it just addressed so many, different things. And here's another thing that I'm going to say about Supers that I want people to understand too. Because Cypher is built the way it's built, even what they give you for that isn't like etched in stone. It's not something that you can change, that you can't change. Because we had an issue. Somebody was like looking at the Claim the Sky book, and they're like, "Well, I couldn't create the hook because, it says that, uh, lifting this amount is this level task." Yeah, that's true, but that's for the world that MCG set up in the Boundless campaign. That's their strength chart, and that's what it is. But you're the GM. Change the strength chart. Make it what you need it to be. So instead of, task 1 through 3, being, just what a mundane human could do, or, leave it at that. But then when you start going above 10, make it exponential. So instead of, you know, 10 being an impossible task for a human, so we say a human can only lift 2,000 pounds, or 1,000 pounds, bench press 1,000 pounds. That would be, you know, anything above that is impossible for a human, peak or not. But when you go to 11, make it exponential. So when you go from 10 to 11, now that's 10,000 pounds. When you go from 11 to 12, you know, that's 50,000 pounds, or 50 tons, or however you want to do it. That's 10 tons, or, and you just do it in those increments. So by the time you get to 15, okay, now you have World Breaker Hulk, lifting 1,000,000 tons. It's just that easy. And it breaks nothing. Um, oh yeah, we definitely got to address that one. Ket Up says another paradigm shift is that most new players need to make is your pools are not your health. The closest thing Cypher has to health is the damage track. And that's what I was saying. Those are your resources. It should make sense that you're expending resources. And I think that's what we have to change our thought process, because people go, well, I'm taking damage. No, you're not. You're expending resources. If you watch, again, watch any action movie, watch the hero in a fight. Okay. You see them going back and forth, bang, pop, 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 the punches are flowing. But as the fight wears on, both characters who are in this fight get tired. Both characters in this fight finally get to a point where somebody gets the upper hand and delivers the knockout punch or the killing blow. And that's again indicative of Cypher looking at those pools being slowly depleted. So guess what? Now, oh my God, you depleted his speed pool, or he doesn't have enough in order to use, a couple of levels of effort anymore to make that stunning block that he's been making for the whole fight. And now, the winning punch is delivered. And that's the kind of thing that you got to start looking at. If you start taking, if you start taking again that typical thought process of gamifying, and I say that not as a bad thing, but stop trying to gamify the narrative. You know, um, and so Jack One Space said, "Yep, playing a big tank with armor with a shield. I wasn't spending any effort on defense because I wanted to save those for skill roles like hacking and deciphering. She was trusting her gear and skill in combat, but had to push herself outside of it. Again, beautiful example of how to play Cypher as a narrative game, as a cinematic game, versus playing it as a typical tactical game where, you know what, I need to min max my character. I need to max out everything. I want to, if I'm gonna be a glass cannon, or if I'm gonna be, the turbo mage, you know. Um, Juggernaut, you said I still haven't fully got my mind to stick with that. Oh, you're talking about with Cat Hub and talking about the pools. Well, I'm hoping my explanation helps you. Um, let's see, we had another question here. First of all, Jack Space said, when I did Gods of the Fall, I didn't like the gods' powers. Instead, I let players take a second foci. The first one was their human skill and abilities. The second one was their divine power. If I ran supers, I do the same thing too. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's another thing about Cypher. You're not breaking anything by giving people two descriptors. If you want to give them dual foci, all it's going to do is change the amount of work you have to do as the GM and the power scaling, you know, and it works. It works for you. I've done so many experiments, with different aspects of Cypher, in my tweaking, in my writing, and so on and so forth. Juggernaut says, do you believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with the muscles in the first place? Do you think that's air you're breathing out? Exactly. And that's really the truth. Exactly. You have to step into the matrix and remember, it's not those things. It's not how big the muscles are. It's not, it's really what you conceive. And between you and your GM, that conceptualization will also be harbinger to the paradigm shift. It will allow you and your game master to grow. Like I said early on when I first started this, I lurk on the chat. I watch a lot. I see a lot of conversations. Some conversations I don't jump into, other conversations I do. But I'm always taking in what's being said to see, if what, this is just another nuance. This is another thing that I could, use within my games. You know, um, right. But yeah, if you run out of pools, you do die. Absolutely. If all three pools are depleted, you're dead, which makes perfect sense. Which you have no more resources to draw from. So yeah, you're dead. you know. Um, and Brilliant Loser, that's a good statement. Exalted second edition walk so Cypher could run. Absolutely. Exalted, I actually enjoyed Exalted for what it was. Um, very arcade. He says Cypher is very logic is a very logical game, which means it's fairly easy to think about what's real to convert to what you believe in Cypher. And here's another thing. I say this a lot too. Uh, that word convert, and I've used it. I make a mistake and I chide myself every time I do. It's not a conversion for Cypher. It's an adaptation. If you start looking at Cypher through the lens of adapting, you will get much more out of it, because conversion always stinks of the idea of I have to find, a 1 for 1, or a 2 to 1 or something along that, or I'm going to be giving up something. And if you look at Cypher and remember that what you're trying to do is bring the spirit of whatever it is you're bringing to the table. You look at, let's just say you wanted to run Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Grimm or Supernatural. You know, it wouldn't be that you're trying to find a 1 to 1 for those things. You want to bring the evocative nature. You want to bring whatever it was that those shows evoked inside of you to the table. You want to bring that experience to the table versus I need a mechanical way to simulate this. And if you bring the evocative nature, the results are, to me, have always been much greater, you know. And I'm going to stop ranting for just a moment and just get caught up in the chat. Make sure uh, I haven't missed anything that I should address. And if you guys have some questions or something to throw at me, please do. If you got some questions, you want something, you want to see how my brain would, extrapolate an idea, whatever the case may be, please do, throw it in there. And I'm going to also let you guys know, I'm going to give you just a little hint preview of what's coming next from Alphadean for my next major project. I actually have a big project coming that I plan on crowdfunding probably around this time next year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. But Jack One Space, see, he said, I think with Cypher that throws people off, it's such a flexible system and it's so easy to change. But that means that people who are new don't see what to change to fit things. In 5e, you can find little mechanical fixes and add rules, and it feels like adding pieces to the machine. Cypher lets you build a whole new machine out of easy to assemble pieces. I could agree with that. And he says, so newbies know what to change. It all seems set and like it can't be added to. But like you can totally take that MFer apart and make it do what you want. And I think that's probably another strength of Cypher. It's really great to bring new people. My experience is new people embrace Cypher a lot easier than people uh, who've dealt with a lot of simulationist games or tactical games. You know, games like 5e and so on and so forth. Always, those people always seem to have a little more difficulty coming into Cypher than, say, a person who's played Powered by the Apocalypse games. And so, Powered by the Apocalypse or Fate or so forth. Brilliant Loser. And he said adaptation versus conversion is breaking my brain. Hold up. What's the problem? It should be very, very simple. You adapt to your surroundings. You adapt and overcome. That's what we used to say in the army. You didn't convert to the enemy's way of doing something. You adapted your methodology, your training, in order to get in the position to be able to overcome the obstacle. You know, um, Juggernaut says, I love that as far as order of pool points from damage intellect is the last to go.
is like you don't die until you lose all of your willpower. Exactly. I mean, when you think about it, it's again that elegance, the elegant idea of the design, strength or might. That's that's your intestinal fortitude. How deep can you dig? Speed, that's your maneuverability. That's your ability to dance around. That's your agility. That not just your physical agility, but it can even be applied to your mental agility. How do you multitask, so on and so forth. And then of course your intelligence. You know what? Until they put a bullet in your head, well, there it is. And that those things all make all the difference. Oh, well, I hope you're reconsidering it for a good way. Brilliant Loser said, no, adaptation versus conversion for me took me out for a moment. I might have to meditate on that. I get what you're saying, but now I'm reconsidering a lot of the things about my own style. And I think that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. And if you can, um, like Al said in the chat, if you ever heard us talk, it comes up a lot. I say it all the time because I know how much I used to work on converting things, and I literally was always trying to find a 1-to-1 or a 2-for-1 or some, mitigating idiom. And then when I realized, no, I don't care about the mechanics. I care about the evocative nature of the setting or the story or whatever it is that I'm trying to tell. And you know what? He said it's simple. I'm realizing how I've been messing up. It's not a mess up. It's just a lack of a way of looking at something. And I think that's what this whole conversation is about tonight. And Al and I were talking and we're thinking that this might become a thing. This might be just a show we're going to start doing. Alpha Dean's paradigm shift corner. He might do some ancient albatross musings, and Spigs will do the napkin, the napkin notes, or who knows. But we'll all like just take a night and just have a show for ourselves. Um, well, Cube, I've seen the movie, I've seen the game, so we can reference whatever one you want. You know. Oh, Al, you know what? You would be the king of talking about adapting these video games. I've never seen anybody with such a knack for adapting video games like you do. I mean, I'm gonna tell you guys, Al did The Darkest Dungeon, and I swear to God, I thought I was playing that video game. Only difference was I was sitting here at my computer and we were going back and forth, and he brought that tension and that dread that you would feel in the game. It was just awesome. But oh, and speaking of also, again, not necessarily MCG related. I mean, it was MCG related, but not Cypher System. I just wanted to throw out there too. I don't know if you guys know about it, but there's like 48 hours left. If you guys ever watched the Gamers movies, Sean K. Reynolds was in the second one, and they're trying to do the fourth one. They're crowdfunding it. They're close to reaching their funding goals, but it's only like 48 hours left. And Monty and Sean will probably be in this movie if it gets funded. Um, and we'll have to give you a link for it, but it's Gamers, uh, and it's on Kickstarter right now. But just you brought that up, made my brain click into that too. All right, so it looks like I'm pretty caught up on the chat. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought that was a question. That's Al talking about for the Darkest Dungeon. The Banes and Boons were actually really cool. You know, it was just it was just good. You could talk about that, Al, because you should do that. Excuse me, I needed to wet my whistle. I was
dried up. So without further ado, I'm not going to keep ranting because I could do this for hours. I'm going to take a step back and let the chat say anything they need to say to me. And if you don't get a chance to, if you don't have anything left, then we're going to wrap stuff up. But I'm going to just give you guys a couple of minutes. Let's see. Variarte said, I love that Cypher has very few levels to pull to represent a large array of possibilities. And if you find those levers, you don't quite get what you want, it's super easy to add on to Cypher. Absolutely. Variarte, I think that's a KedHub line. KedHub always says that Cypher has like dials and levers, and you can pull them and adjust them just the way you need them. And, that's the other thing. One last thing I do like to throw out there about this paradigm shift. The paradigm shift, again, allows you to start looking at the game through the lens of what is the representation here versus do I need, 700 explanations? Is it just flavoring and this mechanic can work for that? Or is it, something that really needs another mechanic? And if you can start doing that, realizing that just reflavoring, reskinning, or taking what's there and tweaking it this way, tweaking it that way. There was a great conversation on the server about descriptors and how people were shifting descriptors to fit their game, which again, nothing but reskinning, nothing but reflavoring what was already in front of you. But now it does what you need it to do. That being said, if you like us and you like what we do, you know what? Join our Discord. We have the largest fan-run server for all things Monty Cook games, with games being run at all times of the day, internationally, and so on and so forth. Not a fan of Discord? You can join our Facebook group. Not as big, but still plenty of discussions to be had. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you like. That helps us out. We're trying to grow that platform. And that's, if you ever miss our Twitch streams, they'll always be up on YouTube the next day. We're trying our best, to grow that platform as big as possible just as well. Give us a little donation on Ko-fi if, you want to help us out some other way financially. Our videos will always be free, but those donations help us do, continue to do things like our giveaways and being able to get to the cons and represent and so on and so forth. If not, you can buy some merch, like my Cypher Unlimited shirt. This one's personalized. It says Alphadean on it. You can get them personalized if you want. We have hats, notebooks, mugs, and so much more. We still need to get those capes out because I need a cape, Al. But at the same time, you know what? We love you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming by, listening to Dean talk about his paradigm shift. Hopefully your paradigm has been shifted. I know our good friend Brilliant Loser, aka Jesus, has been shifted quite a bit with the conversion versus adaptation comparison. But yeah, hopefully you all have experienced some kind of shift in your thought process as well when it comes to playing games and Cypher System. But as usual, thank you guys so much, and thank you, Dean, for talking to everyone about your paradigm shift. And as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later. Have a good night.